Welcome to Motorland, a podcast driven by AAA.
Hello, hello, take me anywhere.
We're bringing you behind-the-scenes stories from some of America's great road trip destinations. I'm Jared Deanda, the voice of motorsports and auto events all around the world, and your wheelman here in Motorland.
And I'm Michelle Donati from AAA, where getting your vehicle road ready just takes a stop into one of our many local AAA auto repair centers.
Speaking of getting the road ready, on this episode, we're going to Vegas. That's right.
Viva Las Vegas, baby. I'm ready.
We're going to visit some historic places in Vegas to find out how Vegas became the gambling and entertainment capital of the world. Do you want to know about this?
Oh, I know all about that, Jared. I love mob movies just as much as the next guy.
Wrong.
Oh.
Nope. Sorry, Michelle. I just buzzed you. I'm sorry, but that is wrong. So let's get the facts because our guest is going to set the record straight.
Okay, then I'm ready to bet all on black. Las Vegas, here we come.
Let's buckle up and ride.
Hello, hello, take me anywhere.
You used to teach history, and now you're head of education at the Mob Museum. I didn't even know this existed. Claire White, welcome to Motorland.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Otherwise known as, this sounds so esteemed, the National Museum of Organized Crime and Law Enforcement.
That's correct. Yeah. I've been in the museum industry for 18 years. I'm not a Las Vegas native, but I am a longtime local. And talking about the history of Las Vegas is pretty much impossible without talking about organized crime and the mob. And, at the Mob Museum, it is important to tell that balanced story of both law enforcement and organized crime. And to do so in the original federal courthouse in downtown Las Vegas and get to tell locals a little bit about our history, but even more so, tell tourists who probably, think they know the story and usually do not, is a real treat.
We do sensationalize organized crime, either it be casino or Goodfellas or, but there's some mistakes being made, right? So what did the 1991 movie Bugsy get right? And what did the screenwriter James Toback make up and sensationalize?
The movie Bugsy is about as wrong as possible. It's actually, it's one of my greatest joys to ruin people's opinion of that movie. Bugsy Siegel did not drive out into the middle of the desert with his girlfriend, Virginia Hill, coming in from LA, see an empty lot and envision the Flamingo. Like none of that is accurate. So two things. First of all, Bugsy Siegel and his associates, Meyer Lansky, Gus Greenbaum, Mo Sedway, a bunch of other mobsters who are less well-known, all invest in the El Cortez in 1944. And that's a downtown Las Vegas casino. They're planning to flip it. They would have been great on HGTV, like flipping casinos instead of houses. And
let's flip this casino.
Exactly.
All right.
To get back to Bugsy, Bugsy Siegel takes actually a project that was already in the works. The Flamingo was not started by Bugsy Siegel. It started by Billy Wilkerson, the original publisher of The Hollywood Reporter, the gossip magazine, and he ran nightclubs on the Sunset Strip in LA. He had this vision for a full European-style resort in Las Vegas to draw these Hollywood stars, no doubt partially to sort of get the gossip on them. But Billy Wilkerson, I think the reason he had this incredible idea is because he was a degenerate gambler and he ran out of money. And what do you do when you're a gambling addict with major gambling debts? You turn to the mob. It's true in 2023 and it was true in 1945. And so that's exactly what he did. And Bugsy Siegel and Meyer Lansky, they did. They saw that this vision was accurate. And it would be completely unfair to not give Bugsy Siegel any credit in it because he did see the Flamingo project to completion. But he's murdered in June of 1947, less than 6 months of when the property opens. And that's the mob for you. You come up with an incredible cash cow, but you don't get to hold on to those earnings for long.
Do they know who killed Bugsy Siegel? Pardon my ignorance.
So it's still unsolved. There are theories that it's not even a mob hit. We don't subscribe to those. His mob financiers back in New York, Meyer Lansky and others who had sort of the majority of the financial investment in the Flamingo were definitely concerned that he was skimming off the top. So we're pretty confident it was a mob hit. But as far as who committed it, you don't know.
I got to ask, what does mob mean? Now you're head of education at the Mob Museum. Like, who were the first residents of the area that historians like yourself know much about? And what's the origin of the mob?
So the city of Las Vegas is pretty young, even by the United States standards. And honestly, like Las Vegas is not an easy place to live before air conditioning. And so although there are a lot of Native Americans, like the Southern Paiutes, even they treat this more as a seasonal place to live. They move up into the mountains in the summer and fall and come back down into the valley in what we would now consider Las Vegas in the winter and spring. I give a lot of credit to the Southern Paiutes who sort of figured out a way to make it work. Historically, there were underground water sources in what's now Las Vegas, and that's what brought Native Americans here. We have groups of Spanish and American explorers who come through. The most recognizable name, if you are a history buff, is probably John C. Fremont, who was a military general and explorer for the United States who came through the area in the 1840s. And then we have a group of missionaries from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints who set up a Mormon fort here. But really until the late 1800s, early 1900s, when we start having some ranches established, there's not a lot going on. And in 1905, Las Vegas is sort of officially set up as a town because the railroad connecting Salt Lake and Los Angeles uses Las Vegas as a halfway point, which it's perfect because it's the period of steam engines. And so they need the water. This is a good place. It makes a lot of sense. And so for everyone who thought the mob started Las Vegas, wrong. First of all, that's a myth. It's a railroad town.
The Mormons, and to go kind of contrarian to the Mormon beliefs, they don't drink alcohol. They're not gambling. I mean, their belief system is contrarian to the Las Vegas lifestyle. What was the times like when Prohibition was going down?
Yeah, so from 1920 to 1933, alcohol was illegal in the United States, which means it was also illegal in Las Vegas. And that's an interesting time period for us because pretty much the whole state of Nevada does not believe in a lot of laws. We're a pretty libertarian state for the most part. There's kind of like a lot going on because Prohibition is happening. The Great Depression is also happening. And then Nevada in 1931 does three crazy things. We legalize gambling, wide open gambling throughout the state. Everything except state lotteries are allowed. And then we also liberalize both our divorce laws. And then specifically here in Clark County, where Las Vegas is located, we also liberalize our marriage laws. And so people are like drawn here in 31 at a time when liquor is still illegal federally. And some of our first casino owners wind up being people who made money bootlegging liquor. A lot of the mobsters who come to Las Vegas from other places, from New York, Chicago, Kansas City, LA, they originally made their fortunes in their own communities as bootleggers and rum runners. Prohibition is the best thing that ever happened to organized crime because it gave them this opportunity to make millions of dollars that they then had no legitimate way to invest. They have to find a place to do it. And Las Vegas benefits greatly from that.
That's fascinating, Claire. But do you ever worry that the ghost of someone like Al Capone is going to hear a podcast you're on and come and haunt you? I'm asking for a friend.
So the ghost thing, I'm not that worried about. I always say 18 years in museums and not a single ghost has haunted me. So if they are real, they clearly couldn't care less about me. As far as like real mobsters, we're not out there claiming people have killed someone if we don't have solid information behind it. So I feel pretty confident. But, I never thought I'd work in a museum where my boss has some convicted murderers in his cell phone contacts. I didn't think that would be the career I would go into.
I'm looking over my back right now. I'm purely interviewing you, Claire, and I appreciate all the information. But one of the other things Vegas is famous for is quick weddings. Where'd that Elvis thing come around? Having Elvis officiate your weddings. And did a lot of mobsters get married there, or they kind of went there to get divorced?
Our marriage industry is a major draw. In 31, we essentially waive all requirements. There's no waiting period. There's no blood test. I always say to this day, you just have to appear sober. We make it very easy, and that draws people in. And as far as the Elvis thing, like, it's so wild to me. In fact, when I was in college, I worked at a themed wedding chapel here in town that still exists.
That's awesome.
Viva Las Vegas Wedding Chapel. And, you know, to the point of the Elvis weddings, like they were wild. But I think the further we get away from Elvis's passing, like the less Elvis is synonymous with Las Vegas. You don't see as many Elvi on the street corners here as you did when I was a kid.
Is that the plural?
I think I just coined it, but we'll go with it.
Yeah.
Let's say you have a friend who comes to visit you and they don't have a lot of time. They've never been to Vegas before. What 2 or 3 places do you tell them they have to go and check out?
The best place to see a lot of historic stuff is downtown. And I'm totally not saying that because the Mob Museum is also downtown. Totally unrelated, I swear. But the downtown definitely has a larger concentration of historic buildings. We've got the El Cortez, which we already talked about. The Golden Nugget is actually the sort of original hotel in Las Vegas. It was originally called the Las Vegas Hotel. It was where the first telephone was. Part of the building is incorporated in what was the site of the original gambling license in the city of Las Vegas, which belonged to a little club called the Northern Club. But if you are a fan of old Las Vegas, you can definitely visit the Flamingo. The Trop is another one of the older hotels. And if you're coming soon, I definitely visit the Trop because it's not going to be here for long, I don't believe. And then not a casino, but still on the Strip, and oddly enough has a mob connection, the Guardian Angel Catholic Cathedral.
That's where you repent.
Yeah. So the Guardian Angel Cathedral is an incredible piece of mid-century modern architecture. It was built by Paul Revere Williams. He was the first Black architect in the American Institute of Architects. He built Frank Sinatra's house in LA. He built a number of properties in Las Vegas. And so the Guardian Angel Cathedral, I mentioned, has sort of this mob connection. If you visit it today, it's right behind the Encore, but it was originally next to the Desert Inn. And the reason for its placement is that the mobster owner of the Desert Inn, Mo Dalitz, actually gave the land to build this cathedral. But what's interesting about Mo Dalitz is he is not Catholic. He was Jewish. And the story goes, and this is totally a myth, take it for what it's worth. But the story goes that a lot of his Catholic employees would be late for their Sunday shifts. And he was getting tired of it. And the original cathedral here in Las Vegas was built on a dump, and it was starting to sink into the ground. And so when they were raising funds to move it, he was like, you can move it on the Strip. You can have this property. I'm happy to give it to you. It's a church, so it's tax exempt. That's a whole thing. I don't know. There's a lot to it. But good thing is it's got mob history. It's a gorgeous piece of mid-century architecture, and it's right there on the Strip. So if you're wanting to take a little break from the sin, you can visit a surprisingly chaste historic property on the Strip that still has this incredible history connection.
Yeah, I'm looking at the stained glass is beautiful. And also a quick little mention here of Paul Revere Williams. He designed the famous LAX theme building.
Oh.
And also the Beverly Wilshire, the Ambassador Hotel.
Yeah.
So absolutely. I love architecture. So that's great. I appreciate that.
Yes.
So we talk about entertainment and how that's interwoven with organized crime. Liberace, Sinatra, Elvis. Were they interwoven? Are they involved? Break it down.
So, the mob makes big name entertainment in Las Vegas possible. And that's just the reality, because in order to get people like Elvis, like Liberace, like the Rat Pack, the big paychecks that they expected, you need mob financing. So that sort of is what originally starts drawing these big names to Las Vegas. There's also sort of this just natural connection between the nightlife industry and the casino industry and hospitality. And a lot of these mobsters, before they come out to Las Vegas, they're running nightclubs in other cities. So for instance, Frank Sinatra actually knew mobsters from the time he was a little kid. Like his parents actually ran a bar. And then when he started singing, which he started doing in his teens, he was still in high school when he started performing. He starts going to mob-owned clubs. People always want to know, though, was Frank Sinatra secretly a made man? He was not, but he certainly wanted you to think he was. I'm not a mobster, so there's only so much that I can say about the culture. But if you're going around telling people how connected you are to organized crime, that's usually a good indicator that you're not a mobster, because they take an oath that you're not supposed to go around talking to people. Frank Sinatra did the exact opposite. So, I think short answer to your question is it's complicated. Like, these guys are not mobsters.
Claire, what would you say are the years of the Vegas mob era? And then why did the mob leave? And when did big corporations take over?
So the mob is on the Strip running something from 1946 until, honestly, the early 90s. Yeah. But by the 70s, they're competing with corporations. By the 70s, we've got corporate interests. Nevada passes a law in 1969 that makes it much easier for corporations to get financing as well as to get gaming licenses. And so for the last 20-ish years, there's definitely sort of this competition between the mob and legitimate business.
Claire, I've got to know, who was better to work for in Vegas? If you were a waitress or a hotel maid or a blackjack dealer, who was the better boss to work for? Was it the mob or was it big corporations?
As a local, everyone always asks, and old-time locals always say that the mob was better, that it was better when the mob ran Las Vegas. And I think, honestly, for employees, it was better to work for the mob than to work for a corporation. There's a lot more job security, as wild as that sounds, with the mob and organized crime. Like, I grew up here in the 90s when the mob was 100% out. And I remember all the time friends, parents losing jobs that they thought that they'd have for life just because, one corporation bought out a casino and then cleaned house. And that wasn't really happening with the mob. But I would be so negligent if I didn't say that there was good and bad when the mob ran Las Vegas. But ultimately, we missed out on so much tax revenue. We missed out on so much development money because the mob did not pay their fair share of taxes. So were there a lot of good things with the mob? Sure, yes. Much cheaper shrimp cocktail. I hate how expensive shrimp cocktail is now. But, ultimately for the city, I think it is better to have above board corporate ownership.
And let's not leave out the Mob Museum. What do you have on display there currently?
I should not sound so excited when I say this first thing. I got a real tonal problem sometimes. One of our best known artifacts, and one that we're most excited about, is that we have the majority of the bricks from the St. Valentine's Day Massacre Wall. So on February 14th, 1929, 7 members of the George Bugs Moran North Side Gang in Chicago were gunned down against this brick wall, and we have it on display, the real bricks, at the Mob Museum. If you're more interested in the Las Vegas story, we've got a ton of Las Vegas history artifacts, some 1940s and 50s era stuff from the Flamingo. We've got Bugsy Siegel's sunglasses. We've got a cigarette case that belonged to Meyer Lansky. If you're more of a popular culture person, we've got a cosmetics case that belonged to Clara Bow. We also have modern costumes from shows such as The Sopranos and Breaking Bad. Awesome organized crime stories. There's just so much to see, and it's all housed in what we would consider our most important artifact, which is our historic building. So if you are a big architecture buff, we're one of the only examples of federal style architecture in all of Southern Nevada. And there's just so many hidden gems. I don't want to give them all away.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Claire White. It's been really fun tooling around Las Vegas with you. And for all this information, the Mob Museum, I never knew about it. So that's this nice little hidden gem. So thank you.
Yeah, definitely come visit us.
Claire White representing the Mob Museum. And thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, my pleasure.
Well, we learned more about Las Vegas. And a little known fact, Michelle, you're going to learn some more because Vegas holds a special place in my wife and I's heart because we actually met in Las Vegas in 1999.
Where in Vegas and how did you meet?
We met because we both work in the automotive industry. We met at the SEMA show, which is the second largest trade show in Las Vegas. No, she was not dancing. I was singing. It's not a classic Vegas story, but it is classic because here we are, married so many years later. and we have 2 lovely boys.
Oh, was an Elvis impersonator involved in any of this?
No, we didn't get married in Vegas. We met in Vegas. So no, there's...
I mean, you might have wanted to bring some of the Vegas to your wedding.
I have been to the Elvis suite on the roof of what's now Westgate, which was formerly the Hilton, and the Snowman and the Showman. That's another Las Vegas film as well.
You talked about meeting your wife in Vegas, and nothing reminds me more of one of my favorite Vegas movies than Bridesmaids. Bridesmaids is just one of my all-time favorite Vegas movies.
Icebreaker question, Hangover or Bridesmaids? I got to go Bridesmaids because it's so unexpected.
So hard. Hangover is so good.
All right, let's go get face tats in Las Vegas, Michelle. Let's go. Michelle, thanks so much for joining us today. And thanks to our sponsor, AAA, for putting us on the road to Vegas.
And don't forget, AAA members can use the AAA mobile app to access their member benefits, including the ability to request roadside assistance, even in Las Vegas.
Click that free subscribe or follow button on your podcast app. That way you won't miss any of our adventures here in Motorland.
Hello, take me anywhere.
Motorland is produced by AAA Mountain West Group in cooperation with SoundThat Brands. Hello, Take Me Anywhere, written by Justin Sullivan, performed by Nightshot, by arrangement with Terror Bird Media. I'm Jared Deanda. May the road rise to meet you and the wind be at your back. We'll see you again soon in Motorland.